Welcome everyone to the Tulsa.net user group. Tonight, Mike Eaton going to talk on Spectre.Console. Mike, thank you so much. I really appreciate you doing this talk tonight, and I'll let you give the introduction about yourself and kind of what is Spectre.Console.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Sean. Thanks for having me. Um, okay, Mike Eaton. I'm a senior software developer, application developer. I don't know what the title is at a mortgage company, Planet Home Lending. I work on a lot of back end stuff. Pretty much get to do what we want to do when we want to do it. No, it's a fun gig. It is a fun gig. Small team. Um, but I've been a .NET dev for about 30 years. Um, Mostly in the Microsoft, mostly in the Microsoft world. I've been a dev for 30 years, .NET since it came out. Um, been a self-employed consultant for many years. Worked for the man starting in 2014. Um, and here we are after a layoff earlier this year. I landed this gig. I've been there just a touch over 6 months. The 13th of this month was 6 months at this new job. Um, yeah, so I'm a developer. I like writing code. Um, I will say that some of the code that I'm going to show, I did vibe code a little bit. So some of this is generated. I'll point that out. Um, but for the most part, the code you see is code I wrote. Um, so Spectre.Console is it's a library for console applications. It really is meant for the display of data. There are some input capabilities, which we're going to show. But there are, if you're expecting like windowing libraries and stuff, there are other libraries out there that do that. This really is just kind of meant to make your existing console apps look better, make data entry a little bit easier, let you do things like display graphs and those types of things. Makes it easier to accept command line parameters in your apps instead of, parsing the incoming args and things. So this, the slides that you see, this was all built in Spectre.Console. And what you'll see on each slide is basically an example, the code, and then the working thing underneath it. So all of this was written using Spectre. And I did some things just for giggles. So this thing you can navigate back and forth with arrow keys. I have, it's at the bottom of the screen, it says hit N for the slide menu. So I can use it's one of the widgets, one of the components to select which slide I want to be on. So lots of power here in Spectre.Console. Um, and so we'll just kind of jump in. So what is it? Uh, just makes it easier to create beautiful console applications. So you can do rich text formatting, you can do colors and underlines and strike throughs and things like that. You can do all that yourself in plain.NET. Most of it yourself in plain.NET. It's just harder. Um, you have prompts and progress bars, ways to organize things in tables and different layouts. And again, it's cross-plat. So I'm on a Mac. Everything you're seeing is on a Mac. I'm in iTerm 2 with Z Shell on my Z Shell. So, but I've done the same stuff on Windows with PowerShell. So Windows Terminal and PowerShell. So it's cross-plat. It works really well. So one of the things you could do is text styling. So you can see kind of at the top the code example. So number one, normally we're used to saying console.writeLine or console.read or console.write, those types of things. In this case, we have ANSI console to write. We can write line. We can do those things. And the whole idea is that we're gonna, for text, like there's this markup. So uh, you can see the bold red text. And I might need to jump over to the code in a second, but there's different things you can do with, uh, you can see that you have underlines, strike throughs. So in standard C Sharp in .NET, if you wanted to change the color of a word, you would say console.background equals this, console.foreground equals that, and then you print out what you wanted to print out. So if you wanted to do two different, and you could do a console.reset. to kind of put the console back the way it was. It's much more difficult to do this kind of thing, the underlining and the strike through in standard .NET. You can create tables. Here's an example of one. And look, all you're doing is creating a table. A table is a Spectre widget, a control, adding columns, and then adding the data, adding the rows. And then you just write that out. So you create it, you set the values, and then you write it out. Um, and you can see kind of what that looks like. We'll jump over here. There are progress bars, and this is live. I can't actually switch to the next slide until these are done running. But you can do different types of progress bars to say, hey, this is how long something's taken. Um, I use this in, I'll show you another demo I did for the 2025 C# Advent blog post that I wrote when I was loading some data because I wanted it to be obvious that, hey, I'm loading data now. So you're not just sitting there staring at a screen. This big, so I fell in love with the console 35 years ago in DOS because that's what we had, right? And so I've always just kind of loved it. So being able to do things like this is called a Figlet text. And the cool thing about this is there are different fonts that you can install, Figlet fonts that you can install, which are out there. So you can kind of change how these things look. But this is that big blocky ASCII text. It's called a Figlet font. You can see I specify the color of the first one. And then you can do things like these are different examples of different fonts. So that's a mini font, but you can center the text. You can do all sorts of things with this. So if you're, let's say you're building something to help your ops team do something, you're probably going to want to keep it more chill than I think these big Figlet fonts. But if you're building yourself some kind of game, some kind of I can't think of the word I want to use, but a simple text-based game, you could do that kind of thing. You can create charts. Right? This is an example. And so a lot of these you're seeing that I'm hard coding the data. I'm doing a chart.add item, pull the stuff from an API call, pull the stuff from a database, loop through it, dump it out, and you've got the same effect. Prompts to me are where I've used Spectre the most. So if we think about standard .NET and you wanted to ask someone what your name is, you would do a console.writeLine, what's your name, question mark. And then you would do a console.readLine to read what they entered. You'd put that in a variable, and then you would do some parsing on it. Let's say you asked them their age. Well, if you just do a console.writeLine on the console.readLine, they could type whatever they wanted in, and they hit enter, and then you have to parse it to say, was that an int? Was that not an int? Was it the correct length? All those types of things. Spectre makes this just so easy because the prompts are typed. So if I say here this ANSI console.ask, that's the method that's going to ask a question, and I tell it it's a string. So I'm expecting a string here. If I said int, then it's going to do the type checking on data entry. So you enter it and you hit enter. It's going to say, hold on, that's out. That's not what I expected you to do, and it's going to reprompt. It's going to do those types of things. And so there's just all sorts of things you can do here. So this is another status, unlike the progress bar. Let's see, that one was quick, but this is just another status. And we're going to go into, I'll show you more of what this stuff looks like in code as we go. This is a live table, and I don't know how well it shows on the share, but when I come into this, the table is being drawn as the data is being loaded. Here's a tree if you ever need to display anything, like here's the structure of something. They have the tree widget. So basically you're saying new tree, and then you're adding nodes, and then all you're doing is taking that control, that widget that you've created, and you're just doing an ANSI console.write, and it just outputs how you've configured that particular thing. I'm going to scroll up a little bit here. So that this calendar, now this calendar is not interactive, and that's what most of this stuff is. This is static data that's being presented. It's not interactive. So when I create this calendar and I add these events to it and I put it in a panel, and you can see there are these dates that are highlighted. Those were those events that I added, but I can't click on these. I can't do anything. This is really just, maybe you have a job that runs and you want to show all the dates of all the files you processed. And let's say you have to do it every week and you should expect a file every week. And you could potentially highlight, hey, this just got done processing. And I highlight maybe a date that doesn't have a file that day, or maybe I highlight all the ones that did. So there's all sorts of things you can do with this. And you can't, I've tried, you can't put like a clickable thing in there either, because there are hyperlink controls that you can use to be able to click and navigate. I talked a little bit about the idea of, so if you use Git from the command line, I use Git from the command line. I use most things from the command line, believe it or not. If you say git checkout dash B, git checkout dash B branch name, right? That creates a new branch. Git pull, right? Git pull or git pull origin main, whatever. So you can build those same types of commands into your application without having to resort to parsing the args that are passed in. Because, kind of before libraries like this, you would have your main function with a string array of your args that were passed in, and then you would have to say if arg1 equals this, or if arg1 contains a dash help or dash dash help, show help, right? You'd have to do those types of things. This makes this really easy to do. You basically create what's called a command app, and then you configure each of the commands. And the next one shows a little bit more about this. So this would be one where you would say, deploy to this environment production. And so if we look up here, I have that you could either pass in a dash E or a dash dash environment. Most console apps, like let's say Git or even .NET, even the .NET command line app, right? You could do .NET dash dash version, or I think you might be able to do dash V too. But most of them give you kind of here's the abbreviated option, here's the longer option. And so this would be, hey, I'm going to deploy to this environment. I can potentially pass in a force flag here in this particular command. And so that's what it would look like. You would type something like deploy would be the name of your command once your program is running. And then you pass in your environment, you pass in the value for the environment. So again, these types of things, if you do any work at the command line, if you do any work building these types of applications, I worked at a company pre-COVID that I had to work on their enterprise platform installer. And it was a console-based application, and I had to add commands to it. We didn't use a library like this, so they had built their own to parse the arguments. But if I had to do that now, I would be using something like this to be able to just make it easier for the users, for me as a developer. This is the end, but we're going to show code now, right? So that was just kind of and some more demos. This was just kind of hey, here is kind of some cool things that Spectre can do. And even on this slide, right? So this is a clickable link. So on a Mac, if I hold Command down and float my mouse over it, you can see I can click on this. So I'll click on it, and we're not going to do that. It would navigate to where we wanted to. So it's easy to install. It's just a NuGet package, NuGet install, or .NET package add, Spectre.Console, done. I say here it's mostly cross-platform because there are a couple of things that, like if you look in the code, in this code for Spectre Console, because it is open source, there are some flags that might say, hey, only for this or only for that. But I haven't run into any hard stops with deving on my Mac and running on Windows. And I've done a very little testing on Linux only because I just I just don't care that much for the stuff I do. It's got a rich set of easy to use components, and I'll show you their website too because their website has some decent stuff. And it includes support for images, and I'm air quoting that. It's not pretty. It's I don't know that I would ever do it, but I'll show you some of that. And again, the command line handling. And again, these are all live links too. And I'm not sure what's up with iTerm, why it wants me to download a plugin. Guess it's been a while since I've done this. Sure, we're gonna do that. Do it live. It's fine. Mhm. Hold on, my browser's being blocked here. You guys can still only see the console. You can't see me messing around installing this thing, right? Or
Yeah,
you can. Okay.
it's just the console.
Okay. So I'm went over to a different screen to install the plugin just so you can see. Uh, it must merely be installed.
We see your password. I mean, I thought you would have a stronger password than that, but
Right.
whatever.
All right. Let's just there we go. So I clicked on the link. So on Windows it'd be the Windows key, right? So on my Mac it's uh, holding the command key down, and I can navigate to any of these links that I want. Um, just remember that choice. I trust my links that I'm clicking. So, and then I just have like escape to get out of this thing. So let's do this. Let's dive into this code, and I'm gonna stop the share, and I'm gonna share a different screen now. Actually, I'm just really gonna share my desktop because it's okay. Okay. I use JetBrains Rider. Can you guys see Rider on the screen? Okay. I'm on a Mac. I use JetBrains Rider because there's no other good alternatives for IDEs. And if someone says VS or Visual Studio Code, we'll fight about that later. Um, so Rider is awesome. So that's what I use here. So this is the app I just showed you. And the way this works, this is actually partly where I had Copilot help me build this because every time I tried to build out, I always wanted to build like these slides in Spectre, but I'd get like one or two slides built, and I'm like, this is tedious. So I had Copilot assist me on a drive to an event earlier this year. So I basically have the slides array, and if we wanted to let's look at the title slide. And you see this is returning a new slide, which is just, there's not much to it, just a plain object here with some properties. Um, but the slide content is what matters. So there's a panel and there's some text in it. So if we look at slide content's the same kind of thing, right? There's not much to this, but what I want to show you is here we go. So this is running the demos. So I have I had charts, I had input, I had those. So this is where that's actually happening, and which is why the code was live because it's actually rendering actual Spectre components out. So this is what didn't show up that I when I was showing you the colors, right? So when I had that bold red text, there's actually let me do this. There we go. There's actually markup tags that you use. So if I want to specify, hey, this text is bold red, I just have these square brackets, bold red, and then I close the tag out here. Here's blue on yellow. Here's an example of a link. So I specify the link, I give it the URL. Uh, Again, so square brackets is it's almost like a normal markup link. And then I have the title of the link. Here's how you do an underline. Underline, and then I said green text. Strike through. So those are so much easier than doing it the old .NET way, which was console.foreground equals whatever white, um, console.background equals this, uh, and then having to reset it. I have one of the demos I have actually shows like if I wanted to change every single letter in a string, how much of a pain that is to do with the two different methods with using the standard .NET, using um, Spectre. Again, here's the table. I'm going to do a little annoying that. Okay. So I have table, I add columns, I have table columns. There's how you do it. Again, I'm using the tags for changing text. Uh, the progress bar, I need to do some refactoring in here. Um, the progress bar, I'm specifying different properties of that. I can add tasks, and it will actually essentially call back and tell me how far I am in a process. Most of these just use thread.sleep. Um, the Figlet. I want to show you this real quick. So the Figlet, uh, these are just words, right? I haven't specified any fonts yet. And I'll show you how you do the fonts. But while I'm thinking about it here, I want to go out to Figlet font. And so there is a bunch of fonts that you can get, and you just plug them into that Figlet component, and then you can do uh, whatever you want. Um, the ones I'm using are kind of boring, but these are what fascinates me about these. Anyway, if you haven't used them, this just fascinates me. So let me show you this. If I look at a Figlet font, so here are the ones I have downloaded, and I'm just gonna do that. So I'm just catting one of the files. So this is how the font is defined. It's just an ASCII file, right? And so every little bit is defined in this file, and then the Figlet font component knows how to get you what you want um, out of the file. So lots of options there, and I want to say downloading them really just gives you um, a text file. So that's me downloading it. So again, it just said, hey, this is a text file. So then you can save it, um, copy, paste it, save it, or right click and save as, and you'll be able to save the file. So that's one of those fun things. And while I'm here, let's just hit. So the Spectre.Console website's awesome. This quick starts are great. Um, and a lot of the components that I've shown you, right, they show you the same kinds of things here of how you set them up. But most of this is really simple. Um, the Let me go back over here. Status. I was looking for one specifically. Okay, here's the calendar that I had mentioned earlier. Um, and you could have these dates, like I said, pulled from a service, uh, read from a text file, anything you wanted to do. I've just hard coded them here for these calendar events. Um, so if you wanted to just have a little, create yourself a little app and name it Cal, right? You could have it dump out and just show you a calendar. You could have it read from a text file special dates for you. So every month it would show you, hey, here is um, the things that are happening in that month and that year. Here's the Figlet. This is what I was looking for. This is the Figlet fonts. Sorry, I'm gonna give myself some real estate. Not doing that though. How about that? I am dumb when it comes to Zoom. So give me 1 second here.
You can switch it to presenter mode, Mike, if you want.
Can I? Well, can I just, I'll just switch, I'll just do this. You can see the web page again.
Yep.
All right. So, uh, and then there's Spectre. Okay. So, um, all I did is I downloaded those fonts and I tell it where they are. So I have a fonts directory in this project. I downloaded the fonts I wanted. I defined what they were here so I could more easily use them. And then it's like I'm gonna do a Figlet font load from that the font path where that font is, and then I'm just gonna use it. So I can specify that font other places. Again, depends on what kind of app you're building. I just think the Figlet stuff is just kind of fun. Um, and you can see here I've done some other things. There's a standard font. Um, and of course, I'm going to do some exception handling here. So I want to show you. Um, I want to show you another. I think it's this dev personal window. Okay. So this is kind of one of my earlier demos when I was doing this, and I said that you could have important dates. So this is one where I do that with the calendar, and I have, oh yeah, so it's for different years. It goes up to 2025. So I have my birthday in here. I have New Year's. I have Valentine's, Christmas, that kind of stuff for certain years. Um, and this is where I load that file. And then I basically just I loop through it and I set the important dates for the specific month that I'm looking at. But I want to show you some other, I don't want to do Christmas trivia yet. So every year for the last, I don't know how many years it's been, the last few years, I have written um, blog posts for the C Sharp Advent. And there was a .NET Advent, but that went away. And I've always tried to use Spectre.Console when I do these things. For it doesn't matter what it's for, just showing something in a better format than just a bunch of console.write lines. Um, so the what year was that one? 23. Oh, one of the first ones I did was this one, and there's an API out there that some guy maintains, just some random guy, that if you hit the endpoint, it tells you who's in space right now. And so this is one of the first ones I did. So there's a guy, his name is Brian Hogan. He wrote a great book called 57 Exercises for Programs. And that's mostly where I get my ideas for these Advent posts. But I think this is the first time I used Spectre and I went, wow, okay, that's kind of cool. So, and if someone wants to verify that those, in fact, are the people that are in space right now, um, and so you can see who all's on the space station and who all is in another spacecraft, probably going to the space station or leaving the space station. But there are currently 12 humans who are not on the planet right now, and that just uses the Spectre uh, console, that the table. So if I look at um, if I look at this, I know that font's small. I will make it bigger.
Mike,
Yeah, very,
Mike,
yes.
see me yawn. It's not you. It's the 4 hours of sleep I got last night.
Um, so you see right at the top of this, I'm creating a table. I'm adding the columns. And this is more of a real world use here, right? I'm hitting the endpoint. I'm getting the result back. I'm looping through the results. I'm adding a row, and then I'm dumping it out, doing an ANSI console.write. That easy. This is what I would use, like at work, I would use Spectre.Console for. Read from an API, dump the results out. Might not be for like an ops team. It could be for the dev team. It could be for people like that. It's not going to be for a business user, but people who work at a console all the time. So then I did another one, which was credit card payoff. And this one, all this one does, this is a lot of input, a lot of using the input controls. So if I do a .NET run here, let me bump this up. So you can see at the bottom of the screen a couple of things. I have this title, credit card payoff, and I changed the colors. I'll show you that. So what's the APR on the card? We'll say, I don't know. Let's do an outrageous one. Let's do 26%. What's the balance on the card? Um, this might actually give me a division error. And how much do you pay each month? Let's say a typical American, we're paying $20 a month. Okay. Yeah, there's a math error in here. Will take you not a number of months to pay off that. But this is one of those that I being able to enter this way. Let me show you what happens if on that percent, if I type in garbage, right? That's not a valid rate because I said I want that to come in as a specific data type. So uh, same thing here with the balance, right? So it wants numbers. Same thing here with that. It wants numbers. Um, and so that one, the colors are one of the things that I think are interesting. Dev, personal, Advent, 23, credit card. Yep. That's the math for figuring that out. Here we go. So a couple things. On those text prompts or the .ask method, you can add validation. So here in this case, I'm saying, what's the APR on the card? I want it to be prompted in green, and the validation error message, that's not a valid rate, right? That came from me. It's red. And I have this validate method on it to say, look, man, the APR has got to be between 0 and 100. Same thing with the credit card balance. Um, it's the type is a double for all of these, I think. Yep, all these are a double. And then all the balance wants is greater than 0. And then how much do you pay each month? Same thing. You just have to pay something other than 0. If you type in 0, it'll be the amount must be greater than 0. So you can do these validations on these things that you're entering, um, just to make it easier. And so I take all those things that are entered, and then I pass them into my calculation method, which this was in the book, uh, Exercises for Programmers. He shows this formula as an image, and it looks really intimidating for someone who's not a math guy. So I had to break it out and dumb it down. And this was all written before Copilot all that stuff. So I had to figure that one out. Um, so then um, I did this heart rate one, which again, it's asking you questions. What year was that? 22. I'll pop that one open. Event 22, this, trust and open. Bump the font here too. Okay, so this one's a little more interesting when it comes to the prompts because you can see, so the first question I ask is how old are you? And then this is arbitrary. These are just rules I put in here. You got to be at least 16 years old and you have to be younger than 100 or I guess 101. Um, and so if I come in here and I go out to that one, 22, and I go into the heart rate one, I'll just show you what this looks like. So how old are you? If I say 5, it's going to say, nope, you must be at least 16. If I say 16, I guess I need to tweak that. You'd be older than 16. If I say I'm 102, I say I'm 101, if I say I'm 100, then it's going to be good. What's my resting heart rate? Now, the validation on the resting heart rate is uh, something where you're not dead, right? That was kind of I think I looked this up. It's like, okay, what's a heart rate where somebody would be dead on the low end and on the high end? So that's kind of the rule I put there. So let's just do 80, and then it just spits out this Spectre table. It felt like the right thing to use there, but the being able to do the validations just makes it easier because I want to protect myself from doing silly things. And again, I don't want to have to write all the validation code to say, because what would happen here, right? We would do a read line, and then we would check to see if the value they entered was a number, and then we would have to check to see if that number was within a certain range. And this is just all in one nice, tidy little package here. Um, so again, there's some uses for it. And then this one was a fun one, and I don't know how this is going to come across on the screen, but I'm going to give it a shot. 24, 2024, type 2024. Christmas Mad Libs. We all did Mad Libs when we were kids, right? If you didn't, sorry. It's just a fun word game where you start out with a story with missing things in it, right? Nouns and verbs and adverbs and adjectives. And then you have to fill them in. Let's say your parents want you to shut up in the car in the 80s, and they give you Mad Libs, and you and your sister were like just laughing it up, yucking it up because you were doing the silliest stuff to fill in these Mad Libs. So I did that here for a Christmas story. Let me see how this bumps up. Okay, I'm gonna exit that and I'm gonna do it again so it's a little bit bigger for everyone to see. Okay, so a Christmas Tale, Mad Lib style. Now, the one thing on those entries is you could provide a default value. So I could enter any noun here, or I could just hit enter and it's going to take this default value of snow. So basically, this was a way for me as I was writing the blog post, and if I do this demo, of not having to think up nouns and verbs and adjectives and things like that on the fly. I could ask you guys. Maybe we'll do that. Um, but what I want to show is that these all have defaults. So enter a name, enter a plural noun, enter an adjective, a place in a house, a greeting. So I'm just going to go through and accept all the defaults for all of these. And then at the end, it's a long one. It will spit out the story. So this is the story, and then the things in red are the things that we picked, the things that we answered. So, you know, what I did here is when I built this, I had Copilot help me build the story, like just the framework of the story, and then I went in and said, okay, I'm going to replace this, I'm going to replace this, I'm going to replace this, and then I built the prompts, and then at the end, I just really this is one big string interpolation thing going on here. Um, and then just at the end, you can see here, this is just an emoji. So Spectre makes it really easy to dump out emojis to the screen. And so this one, let's go back here. This one, this one was honestly a really fun one to write. 24 Christmas Mad Lib. Yep, yep. And I will bump the font up as soon as it loads. Okay. Oops. Come on. Okay. So really, this is just a series of ANSI console.asks. They're almost all, in fact, they are all strings. But because I knew what the story was, I had to name them things that made sense, right? And then so these are all I'm going to ask every single one of the questions. And this, you can see the default value that I provide for all of these. So they just made it really easy. And then down here is where I build the story. And again, it's just putting those things in there. I output it to a panel that's green on white text. And then you'll notice here this. So when the thing starts, it says a Christmas Tale Mad Lib style. So I wrote this method, get seasonal string, which alternates. You see down, well, let's do, which alternates every other letter. Let it start. So red, and there's a space, red, green, red, green, red, green. I specified what those colors were, but no matter what, doing that is tedious. So I wrote a method to do it so I could pass in any string and it's going to alternate the colors. And so what that looks like is here, and you can see red on white, green on white. I think in a newer version of this, I actually passed in the colors so I could potentially alternate between two other colors because I have stolen this method for um, newer posts. Oops. And then I'll show you one more, which is the newest one I did. This year, which was a Christmas trivia game. And again, of course, I used Spectre.Console to handle all the output. I will say this one's still a work in progress because I knew how I wanted it to be. And so the Christmas Advent, you sign up 2 months ahead of time, you pick a date that you're going to publish, and then promptly forget about it until a day or two before, or sometimes the day of, and you're like, oh, I have to write this blog post, which is what happened this year. I was knocking this thing out on the 7th so I could publish it. So it's not quite the way I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be more like the PowerPoint thing where I could the questions kind of move forward and they instead of going down. So basically there would be a question on the screen. You'd go to the next one and it would replace that on the screen. And I'll show you what I mean. But you see here, there's that get seasonal string again, which I stole. So the way this one works, I have this big JSON file of questions. And I asked Copilot to generate this for me. I said, I'm writing a trivia app. I need 100 questions related to Christmas. And it did it gave it to me in batches. So I got these like 25 at a time. So I scrolled through and went, okay, these are okay. Um, Copilot was dumb though, and it pretty much made every answer, which is the location in the array of options, the first one. So I had to go through this file and I touched it up so you know they weren't all like the very first thing that was presented. And so I'm asking, how many questions do you want to see? Because there's 100 total, and it gets a little tedious to um, answer them. So five. I don't have a default. Yeah, I do have a default value of five here. So it's going to ask five questions. The validate is basically saying you can't ask to see more questions than I have in the database, in the data file. Um, and you have to ask it. You have to see at least five questions. So between 5 and 100 in this case. Um, and then so you're going to be answering so many questions. I bold that. Uh, I I pull in. So this is one of those cases where I use a spinner, a status, and I show a Christmas tree. And I kept the thread sleep in there just so you could see it, because this does go pretty quickly. But basically, this loads all the questions, um, and this is kind of what you'd expect to see, right? I'm going to open the file and I'm going to deserialize it, call it good. Um, and then I'm going to grab random, a random number, whatever I entered. So if I said I want five questions, I'm going to randomize, and I'm only going to, so I don't want the first five. I don't want the second five. I want just five random questions. So that's what I did here. And then loop through for each of the questions, ask the question, and I didn't have to do a whole lot here, but this is, again, I'm going to use the formatting to show the questions in bold. I'm going to have the options in yellow, and then I'm going to ask to select one of those options. And let's see, it verifies that, hey, you picked the correct answer or you didn't. And then I do a little summary at the end just to say, hey, you got this many correct out of however many there were. Oh, I knew I made a change to the get seasonal string. This I cleaned this up a little bit. I made this just a little um, better than it was. Okay, so let me run this one again. Except we don't want you. Or trivia. Okay, so I'm going to do a .NET run on this one. How many questions would you like to answer? I'm just going to hit enter to get the five. It's loading. There was a little Christmas tree there. Now, this did load the whole data set, right? All 100 of them, and then I picked five. So, which Christmas movie features a character named Cindy Lou Who? And I'm not saying these are the best questions, um, but there they are. So I'm going to pick an answer, and I get correct, and then it's going to give me more information about, yep, Cindy Lou Who is a character in How the Grinch Stole Christmas. So this one I'm going to purposely answer incorrectly. So I'm going to say 2, and you can see I get incorrect. Tells me what the right answer is. The first state to recognize Christmas as an official holiday. Well, guessing Virginia or Massachusetts, right? No idea. Alabama. Did we all learn something? Alabama was the first U.S. state to recognize Christmas as an official holiday. I had no idea. Sleigh powered by Christmas spirit. This one, it doesn't. I've seen the Polar Express a bunch of times. Oh, Elf. Okay, I guess I haven't seen Elf enough then. Um, we're almost there. Glory to the newborn king. And then here at the end, you answer 2 out of 5 questions correctly. Kind of terrible at this. Keep spreading the cheer. And then I could, again, run it again, get a different set of questions. But again, doing this with Spectre.Console, number one, adding the color and adding it, to doing those things just made it look nicer. Being able to do the selections in a simple fashion is a win. Um, and then doing simple things like I don't know, I think it's kind of cool to show like the emojis and things. I think it just looks kind of nice. Um, so there is that. And then I did want to do like one more.
Hey, Mike, quick
Yeah,
question for you.
yeah.
Do those emojis require a custom font too?
Nope. Let's go out to the website. Uh, Consider only using emojis introduced for Unicode 13 that belongs in blah blah blah. Um, I haven't noticed that it's tied to anything like that, just as long as your terminal can support that kind of thing. Um, and so I don't know if this is a all-inclusive list, but here's a good list that they just work, and I haven't needed to worry about fonts or anything. And I think in my terminal, let's just look here because it's been a while since I set this up. My terminal, um, don't remember. Maybe I'm thinking, oh yeah, so I'm using Space Mono for Powerline as my font. Um, so again, I don't have any idea what the impact is on things like emojis. I don't think there's any. I think they would work as long as your terminal itself supports that kind of thing. So I did want to. Oh, so I guess let me finish this thought. So all of these that I just showed you, um, I think there's only one that I did. I don't see it here. I did another advent here. Must not be. Oh, because I didn't use Spectre. I did another advent one. I did this one, 12 Days of Christmas, but this did not use Spectre. I don't know why I didn't use Spectre this time. I think because the code itself was just super fascinating. Um, this is the song 12 Days of Christmas, and you build the whole thing given only this data. So it's a fun challenge because you have to pluralize words, you have to do some fun stuff. So this was a cool challenge. I just didn't use Spectre for that one. So all those things are out there. But I did want to show one more. Just bear with me while I find it. Um, personal. First stations. Oh, it's not there yet. Second. Presentations. 25. That's the code for Spectre. Here we go. Um, I forget which one of these I wanted to, which one has the right stuff in it. Bear with me just for a second here. We'll pop this thing open and see if it's the code I want. If not, then what I'll do is I'll show you in a PowerPoint slide. But yep, not that one. What I wanted to show, which the Spectre version of my slides doesn't show, um, is kind of how just how bad it is to do in normal.NET. So I'll show that, and then we'll kind of open it up for questions and kind of go from there. Like I said, all this code is out on my GitHub. I go to those blog posts, you'll find it. The presentation bit where I actually build the slides. I think that's in GitHub. If not, I will put it out there and kind of make it evident where it's at. Um, I just don't remember if I put that out there because I did this. Oh, look, one of my 80 repositories. Oh, it's not out there yet. So I will get that out there just because it's fun. It's fun to look at and to figure out how you do stuff like that. PowerPoint. Okay. Remember how to use PowerPoint. Okay. So this is a good example of what I was talking about, how you would do colors um, just using standard .NET. You're setting background, foreground, you're doing a bunch of right lines. So everything, all these right lines between here and the next foreground color, those are all going to be uh, white on blue. And then down here, I do a reset color to kind of reset it back to the whatever your console is set up to be, gray on black type of stuff. Um, so like doing this, and you can even see here, you can get fancy. That's tedious to do, to be able to change individual words. Um, because you can see here, I did a foreground color, I did the right, I did a foreground color, I did a right. Um, and if I wanted to do individual characters, that's even worse. Uh, Again, this is that code that I don't ever want to have to write. Um, this is why the validations are awesome. Um, okay, so these are the things I showed. So now you replace those with these tags, and the tags are actually based on something called BB code. So you can go out to Wikipedia and look up BB code and kind of see what the history of those the markup is that you use for the codes and the underlines and that kind of stuff. Um, this was smaller. I'd have us do a Mad Lib. Do you guys want to do a Mad Lib? Should we? Is it safe?
Do have a quick question right quick before we do that.
Yeah.
Are there any highly used apps that are written with Spectre.Console? Anything like Copilot CLI, Claude Code, .NET CLI?
I would say no to all of those, but I don't know for sure. In fact, I don't even know, like, I don't know. That's a good question that I would be interesting to know. Um,
It
Spectre.
seems extremely powerful. Surely there's going to be some production things out there right now that's using it.
Right, right. And don't call me Shirley. Um,
Okay, you're dating yourself.
I'm glad that one didn't just go off into the ether. Um, okay, so let's do this. Let's just have a little bit of fun, and then as we're doing this, we can 20.
Well, I'm guessing with everybody's affinity to the GUI, for lack of a better term, I'm going to guess that most of the console type stuff is going to be us and our teams, or maybe some sys level stuff that we would give out for server admins or something. But
Yeah,
as
for
far
sure.
as, John Q. Public,
Right. This is 100% nerd territory, right? Like like these are not things that you're going to present to a business user, right? You're not going to say, "Oh yeah, you have to open up your terminal," and then they're going to say, "What's a terminal?" And then you're going to have to show them. And no, they want to either click an icon or go to a web page, click a button, do their thing. This would be my ops guy is like me, and I know he spends as much time with open terminals as I do, and I'm a dev, right? And so for him, what does he want to do? Take his hands off the keyboard and navigate to something, or does he want to run a command to get the information he needs, or to, so one of the things I have done is I worked on a team, I don't know, 3 years ago or so, and they were notorious for not keeping, and we all probably are this bad, from keeping their DevOps stories updated, right? They'd get a signed one, they would just forget about it. I do the same thing. And so I wrote a little console app that used the Azure DevOps API and pulled stuff back, did the date math, and said, this thing, it's been this many days since you've touched this, since you've made a change to the story or whatever. Same thing. I want to see all the open PRs across all my projects without having to go to some whatever screen in DevOps. These are tools for me. These are tools for other nerds. But I want to show it in the world I'm living in, which is the terminal. And so, yeah, no, 100% I agree. These are going to be things that I would build for my team. These are things that I would build for an ops guy only if I knew that he was like me and liked the terminal. And so,
I could have seen a real use for this in 2011, 2010, 2011. We had a client that insisted we keep the character-based console type app, and we ran it on the AIX side, and then we created a Windows side that talked to the same business library eventually. But I could have seen us making the move with that and do everything. This was a lot better, a lot easier than some of the crap we were writing in Synergy DE for the Unix side.
right. And I'm trying to find, I am trying to find this path. So there is another library that I think is really, really cool. That just kind of takes me back. And I think Sarah Dukevich, her blog post this year was in using this library called TUI.
I was not using TUI. I think it
You
was,
weren't?
no, I was using Spectre. But are you thinking of terminal.gui or maybe Racer console?
Okay. Okay. I'm trying to, it's just TUI.
It's just TUI.
Yeah. So this one is a windowing library, like the old school, like if you came up in the early 90s, um, this library is, I can't just find the library. And of course, now that I want to find it, I can't see it. Um, but this is one where you can actually build like the old school, like DOS edit Windows or QBasic or Quick Basic. If you ever did work in Quick Basic, yeah, that is the type of Windows you can apps you can build with this one called TUI, and I just don't remember the name of it. I don't know if it's .NET or whatever. There we go. This is the type of stuff you can build with that library, which I think is cool, and that just is a total throwback to how I came up. But again, you're never going to present that to a non-nerd user. A nerd's going to go, bro, that's kind of cool. Or they're going to say, why did you build that as a React app and all this nonsense? Okay, so I did want to do this real quick because I think this could be fun. We'll kind of zoom through this and then we will get on to other questions and socializing. Okay, who wants to give me a noun? Shout it out.
Samaflange?
You spell it.
SAMOPH.
TH,
P is in Paul.
PH.
LANGE.
How about a name?
You got to give a definition of that too.
Hold on. I'm going to put a name in. Enter a plural noun. Shout it out.
Tendons.
Right on. How about an adjective?
Silly.
Place in a house.
Dungeon.
Oh,
And
this one's going to hell. I'm here to
all
tell you.
right. How about enter a greeting?
That's not appropriate for me to say here.
Oh, I know what.
Salutations.
Okay. How about enter a noun, another noun?
Knife.
Enter a name.
Rat. R-A-T-T.
Wow. Right on. Enter an adjective. I'll just enter and we'll be excited. All right.
Fine.
How about an adverb?
Slowly.
Lonely?
Slowly.
Slowly. Sorry,
Yeah,
sorry.
slowly.
Slowly. Enter another noun. Would. Enter another noun.
Sled.
Another noun.
Pickaxe.
Another noun. I'm gonna keep it with glitter. Glitter, I think, could be fun here. Another noun.
Cookie.
Another adjective.
Slimy.
Slimy.
Yeah,
That.
slimy. Yeah,
Okay.
think
Enter a
so.
noun.
Chainsaw.
That. How about a vehicle?
Humvee.
Enter a place.
Iceland.
Was that Iceland?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How
Glad you
about
didn't say Tulsa.
With the way the story's going out, I want to spare you this time.
enter a phrase?
Yippee-ki-yay.
I'm gonna yippee. I don't know.
Close
Close
enough. I know
enough.
what you're talking about.
Close enough. By the way, it's not a Christmas movie. Okay.
That's why I went with it.
So once upon a time in a small village covered in camouflage, I don't know if I want to look that up. There was a little elf named Joe G. Little. Joe G was very excited because Christmas was just around the corner. Every year, Joe G and the other elves worked hard to make tendons for all the silly children around the world. One day, Santa Claus called Joe G to his dungeon. Salutations, Joe G. I need your help with a special task, Santa said. We need to make a special toy for a knife named Rat. Joe G was excited and slowly got to work. First, Joe G gathered all the materials, sled, pickaxe, and glitter. Then Joe G used Cookie to put everything together. It was hard work, but Joe G didn't mind because it was for a very special child. Finally, the toy was ready. It was a slimy chainsaw. Santa was pleased. Thank you, Joe G. This is perfect, Santa said. Now let's get ready for Christmas Eve. On Christmas Eve, Joe G and the other elves loaded the Humvee with all the toys. Santa climbed into the Humvee and waved goodbye. Yippee-ki-yay, he shouted as the Humvee took off into the night sky. Joe G watched as Santa and the reindeer disappeared into Iceland. It had been a magical Christmas, and Joe G couldn't wait to do it all again next year. The end. That was
That's
good.
awesome.
That was good.
That's awesome. I love Mad
So,
Libs.
yeah, that was fun. Okay, so I covered a lot. There's a lot in Spectre. Um, any questions at all? And if not, you won't hurt my feelings. But any questions at all?
I don't think we have any at the moment. We have a last chance for questions. If anybody wants to come off mute and ask, or pop them into the chat and I'll ask for you. in the meantime, while we're waiting on any questions, if they want to post them. Thank you, Mike. This was awesome. And I think you definitely got me interested in using it. And I, I definitely agree that it's more likely to be used on internal tools and or if you're going to have like the console version of an application that also has a GUI, maybe you've got the user side versus an admin side, the geeky side type thing. I can see it being used there, but um, and I could definitely see how it's a whole lot easier to use than regular console. So
Microsoft uses it on the Aspire CLI. I was digging in the repo just to see where the references were. I'm like, oh yeah, no, it's legit. It's there.
Cool.
yeah,
But the question is anyone using Aspire?
I use it every day, all day, every day.
yes, people do use Aspire.
And I only use it to man line. I hate using it in the IDEs and editors. And we all know hot reload still doesn't work.
Can I assume that Playwright would be good for testing a Spectre console app?
Good grief. I don't know if that would work.
It
I
probably
can't believe,
won't.
yeah, probably not Playwright.
Playwright's a web
Oh,
testing framework, so it's good for your websites.
okay.
But in
Yeah.
terms of consoles, and specifically with Spectre, Spectre has its own ability to help with test harnesses. And I posted a link in the chat.
Yeah.
I saw that question and it should include links. And no, I am not a link bot. I promise you, I'm a human here.
No,
No, you didn't fill
I
out the
think that would
captcha.
definitely work good for like some of the stuff we do because we can check the web app to restart things, but it's right now clunky and slow still. And since most of them are still have their responsible servers open and check on them randomly throughout the day to be able to look at it and just glance and see instead of having to see red and then okay squint and read what does that say, be able to make it a lot better and be able to handle something directly from there instead of having to go somewhere else to do something and then go back to what you were doing.
Yeah, and I can see this being easy to set different color palettes. Because like I've got a friend of mine that is a programmer and he's partially colorblind. There's just some colors he cannot see. Didn't know it till he joined the army. And so I could see something like having some settings in certain apps would help with some predefined color palettes. So pick the one that he can see the full enough of the spectrum.
Yeah.
All right. I will stop the recording. And thank you again, Mike. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
And still that back. All right. Be sure to check out, we're doing an after party here in just a moment. But please check out our next event in January with Maz Christensen. Until then.